Welcome to the Derek Loudermilk Show. This is episode 324 with human design expert Liz Coyles. On today's episode, we talk with Liz Coyles. She's a human design expert and the human design reader at Aligned by Design. And if you haven't heard of human design, it's a combination of astrology, I Ching, Kabbalah, and the chakras. And basically, it tells you about the conscious and unconscious imprints of your personality and your energy. So you can find out exactly how to interact with the world, your mission in life, all these things. And I started using this with no expertise with one of my clients, and it was a huge game changer. And I thought, I need to learn more because I'm probably using this the wrong way, and I wanted to get a basic understanding. And apparently it's been so helpful for so many people that Liz and her business partner Amy, they just announced right after we did this interview that they broke 7 figures in their first year of doing business together in their company Aligned by Design. So super popular, super trendy right now. They were featured in Vogue, and so one of the things Liz tells the story of how they got featured in Vogue. And so we're going to talk about a few different things in this episode. I sent her human design charts for my entire family and a couple of my clients. And you can get your own charts for free at several places online. So you can always go and check that out and then listen to this episode with your chart in your hand if you want. But we're going to talk about, how to parent according to human design, how to do business, how to coach people. Once you know their human design, you can figure out how to create your world, how to create your business in the path of least resistance. So this is a really important thing, especially for entrepreneurs. So what does that mean exactly, the path of least resistance? Well, Liz tells you exactly sort of how they run their company based on desire and how, you're doing what feels good to you and how that's just skyrocketed their business. So you get some practical examples for if you learn something from a human design chart, how do you actually put it into your life? So Liz is amazing. She's incredible. And this is going to be a fantastic exploratory interview about human design. And here is Liz Coyles. Hello, everyone, and welcome Liz Coyles to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. And we're going to be talking about human design, something that I'm just dipping my toe into understanding, and you are now well into understanding and helping people with this. So I'd love to just start with, why should people care about human design? Maybe what is it and why people should care?
Your human design it's a system that is based off of a few things. It is a bit of astrology, the I Ching, Kabbalah, the chakra system. And it is your energetic blueprint. It is your kind of roadmap to your energy as a human. And there's a lot to it. I always say human design is like an onion, but what it essentially is going to do is just give you an awareness of the energy that you have, how you're meant to be using it to kind of be co-creating and with the universe and manifesting in the path of least resistance, how you should be making your decisions, and just kind of blind spots where your conditioning takes place as a human and what to look out for, kind of some behavioral patterns, I guess, that can kind of become conditioning. There's so much to it, but I just think it's an incredible tool to really honor who you are at the core. And it feels really good to do that. It also, things kind of start to fall into place in a really effortless way when you do that. And I also think within relationships in your life, it creates a lot of understanding and a lot of awareness of the other and how they operate and how they're meant to operate. And in doing that, it creates a lot of space to just allow the other to kind of show up and unfold authentically. And to me, that's where the most beautiful, genuine relationships thrive and exist. So that's what human
Yeah.
design has done for me in my life.
Yeah. Could you talk a little bit more about how you've approached life differently after sort of learning about your design?
Yeah, so I'm a 4-1 sacral generator. So, you know, as a generator, for example, we all have a strategy. My strategy is to respond. So what that means is that I'm not designed to go out and make things happen and force things to happen. I'm really meant to sit back and just kind of pay attention to what is showing up in my world. And when my gut or my sacral is excited about something, I'm meant to really dive into it and go after it. And when I'm not, I'm not meant to. I'm not meant to be doing things because I should, or because if I do that, that's going to get me here. I'm really meant to be having a direct hell yes with whatever that thing is. So for me, it's just helped me to, you know, just I hate saying I've become more selfish, but I've become more particular with my time and energy. And it's just saved me from a lot of burnout and feeling exhausted and feeling like, oh, I just don't want to do this, you know. And the more that I fill up my life with those things that really light me up, the more energy I have, the more enjoyable life has been. It's just a more kind of conscious way of existing, and it's been really enjoyable. And, you know, I've been thriving as a human because of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I hear similar stories from people that have started applying it in their lives. And I think at this point, the listener or the viewer, you can go get your human design chart. There's probably multiple places you put in your birth information, time, place, and it will give you a chart. And the way that I understand this, and maybe you can tell me if the thinking is correct. So you talked about it was like an energetic blueprint. And when you think about it from, let's say, a scientific perspective, there are fields of space and time, electromagnetic fields, all these things that sort of move and flow in our planet, in our solar system. And when you are born, there's a specific arrangement of all these fields. And as you're being born, you know, your personal sort of physics is imprinted with the physics of the universe around you. And that sort of lends to the human design blueprint as we sort of interpret it in the chart.
That's the quantum physics aspect of it. There are these tiny little particles called neutrinos that it's so interesting because Ra Uru, who he actually downloaded this in 1987, and that was an element of it that he downloaded, was that these, you know, there was this energy mass that was kind of measurable. And the way that I kind of think of it is just like that. If you kind of took a snapshot of like that moment that you were born and you were measuring the energy, it's showing where the energy lies in your chart. So when you're looking at your chart, everybody has 9 energy centers, and they're either going to be colored in or they're going to be white. And where they're colored in, that is where the energy within you is consistent. And it's something that you can tap into 24/7. And so to me, that's where that energy was. That's where that energy was sitting in that field. And where the center is white, it is either going to be undefined or completely open. There'll be no gates or lines coming out of it at all. And that's where your energy is inconsistent. And that is where you're actually absorbing from other people. That's where a lot of our conditioning takes place. But where your energy is consistent, that's really where your strengths lie, and where your energy is inconsistent is where your wisdom lies. And so together you can really tap into both of those to step into your personal power.
I like that framing as a positive in either way, like strengths or wisdom. Mm-hmm. And so in this interview, we'll be sort of referring, those of you listening won't necessarily be able to see the charts we're talking about, but I've given Liz some example charts so we can talk about. And part of the reason I wanted to do this is because I have a client who's a different type than me, which is I'm a generator and she's a projector. And she told me, you can't coach me the same way you would coach another generator. And that's kind of opened my eyes. And when I see a lot of business coaching, I see a lot of programs online that they have like, you do this and here's how it works. It's just going to work for you. Which means it might work for like a subset of people. Like if it's geared towards generators or geared towards projectors, it might be a great fit for them, but sort of not work well with other people. And so my thought was that there's potential, especially for trainers and teachers and coaches, to be able to cater more specifically to different types.
100%. I think that a lot of people coach from a place of, this worked for me in my life, so I can coach you in that same way, which is, you know what, I think that 70% of the population are defined sacral beings. So there's a good chance that if there's a sacral being that's, you know, there's 70% chance that your client will be, and that it will work for them because it worked for you. But like you said, there's 5 energy types altogether. We have generators and manifesting generators, which together make up 70% of the population. They are ruled by their sacral chakra. That is they're really here to be working and following what lights them up. And when they do things that they love, they generate more energy, and they're here to really add energy to the collective. There's projectors, which is your client, who make up 20% of the population. And projectors really are here to see and not to do. They don't have that all day burn. They don't have that energy. Their energy is finite. They kind of wake up with a reserve of energy in the morning, and what they have is what they have. And so they have to be really conscious and aware of it, because it just works so different. And I think it's amazing to be able to, as a generator, coaching a projector, to really be able to see, like when I look at someone's human design chart, I can really see into them on a deep level, because I can understand, like when I do my readings, people are like, whoa, this is insane. It feels like you've known me forever. But it's just, getting your chart read resonates at such a deep level, because you really feel seen and understood. And that's where you can really coach from a different angle, you know, like for the projectors or the manifestors. Manifestors make up 9% of the population, and they are here. They're the only energy type that's here to initiate. Like they are here to like go make it happen. And every other type kind of has to wait for something to come into their field to either respond to, or an invitation. But they don't need to wait for that. And their energy works in like urges and bursts, and they just kind of, it's really spontaneous energy. And then reflectors are the rarest type. They're 1% of the population, and they have no defined centers. So they're really absorbing the other, and they are kind of chameleon-like in that they can become who they surround themselves with, because they are absorbing so much energy. So they operate so differently as well. So you definitely can tell a lot of how to kind of guide somebody and lead them down the path that's best for them by knowing their human design.
Yeah, and I've also shared with you my kids' charts, because I want to, you know, have insight into, you know, how best to parent them. And one thing, so for example, you were talking about the colored in centers versus the open or clear centers. One of my children, I noticed she has all of her centers colored in, and I was like, well, that seems maybe kind of rare or unique. So what would that mean in terms of, I think you said the colored in part is where you're consistent. So what would that mean to parent somebody who's like totally colored in?
So a lot of energy, and almost the conditioning there can almost be confusion, because it's like, I don't even know what to listen to. Like energetically in her body, it's going to be like, there's going to be a lot going on. She's going to be really mentally active. You know, when she gets excited about something, she's going to really be, have that energy to go after it. She will, yeah, she's a Manny Jen. So it's like lots of things exciting her, being pulled in lots of directions. And that can be the challenge, is that there's a really loud mind. You know, you have that intuition. She has her gut that can tell her yes or no, I want this or that. That defined heart, which is like will. And when you want something, you're going to do it. And so there's just a lot of energy kind of pulling her in different directions. It's very rare to see a completely defined chart. But yeah, I mean, it's just that she would really just have to sift through what is what. And that's where that kind of awareness piece comes into it. And she's a 6'2" profile. So in an emotional authority, that's a big one. I think in terms of relationships, whether it's, you know, a parent or a romantic relationship, I find that the solar plexus, which is, if you're looking at a chart, guys, it is at the very near the bottom. It's a brown or white triangle kind of arrow looks like it's pointing inwards. That is your solar plexus. So that's your emotions. And I think that that is where the most kind of work or understanding can be done within a relationship. Because for you and your family dynamic, for example, you and your wife both are undefined there. So for you guys emotionally, you really are cool, calm, collected. And that's kind of your natural state of being. You don't really, you're not going to wake up super happy for no reason or angry for no reason. If you wake up happy, something exciting is happening that day. And if you wake up angry, you know, somebody's upset you. And typically I find with people that are undefined here, they really can pinpoint rather quickly what's making them feel a certain way, because their emotions are tied to something. Where if you're an emotional authority, so both of your children are, you can experience emotions that are tied to nothing. You can just wake up and be in a -8 and there's nothing specifically that's making you in a mood. You're just in a mood and you have to really ride that wave. If you're an emotional authority, where the undefined is like cool, calm, collected, the emotional authority is like all day. There's just a lot of emotion that they're feeling. So when it comes down to communication, right? Like, what is wrong is a typical question that an undefined would ask, because I would know what was wrong with me. But to an emotional authority, there might not be anything specific that's wrong. They might just be like, I just need 20 minutes to be alone and move through this, which is something that's hard to understand when you don't experience emotions that way. So I think that is a really, really powerful center to just be able to understand the other and then allow space for them to kind of ride the wave. And especially for decision making with an emotional authority, like for them, there is no truth in the moment. So they are meant to really like sleep on things and buy themselves time before they make a decision, because they can tend to change their mind. If they're making a decision when they're in like a +5 and they're just in a, you know, they're in a good mood, or even higher than that, like a +8, they're like, yeah, this is so awesome, I want to go, you know, and then the next 2 days later, you're like, okay, we're going to do that thing. And they're like, oh, I don't want to go. So yeah, it's best for them to kind of wait a couple days. And especially for, let me see your son's chart actually, because they're both manifesting generators and emotional authorities. So definitely for both of them, like, yeah, you don't want to have them committing too far into the future, because as an emotional authority and as a manifesting generator, they will have that tendency to just change their mind on things. So they really have to kind of see how it goes and see how things change as they go to reach clarity on what it is they're wanting to do.
Quick question about how you would sell to an emotional authority person sort of authentically, because if you're selling someone and they're like, yeah, this is the thing for me, like they're going to spend $10,000 on a coaching program, for example. You know, sometimes you hear people say, I have to sleep on it. And it's actually, they're just uncomfortable with something that they haven't asked. And sometimes they actually need to sleep on it because they're an emotional authority maybe. So how can you work that into sort of like an enrollment or a sales process?
You know, I think that then from there, it depends what energy type they are, because once they reach that emotional clarity, they're going to tap into something else. So if you're a sacral, so if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, at that point, you're going to tap into your sacral, and the sacral knows a yes or a no, or this or that. It's going to pull you in one direction. So, you know, you can just say, like, ask yourself, like, do I really desire this? Is this something that I really am wanting to do? And once you reach that clarity, and when an emotional authority reaches the clarity, it's just going to like feel like the right thing. It'll just be like, they'll almost become indifferent about it. And it's just going to feel like the right decision for them. So they just have to tap into either their sacral, or if they're, you know, a projector or a manifestor, they're just going to be tapping into really just what feels like the right decision. I think for sales, you know, obviously giving them that time, but I find that sales actually, Amy did a really amazing program with Melanie and Lair called Why They Buy. And it's all based off of your profile numbers, which your profile is made up of 2 lines, which are numbers, either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And they are kind of the conscious and unconscious parts of your, I don't want to say personality, but it's kind of in a very general sense, your personality and how you move through the world, how you operate. And I think that actually is really for selling what is really valuable, because some people really just want to see like a testimonial. Some people want to see that somebody else did it and they loved it and it worked for them, and that's enough for them. You know, some people really want to know all of the details, the nitty gritty, like, well, what time is it? And are the calls live or are they not live? And what else, like, what am I getting? And, you know, are we getting a booklet with this? Do we get a PDF file? Like, some people just want to know all of those things. So, yeah, I would actually, if people are like, ooh, how can I incorporate sales into human design? I would highly recommend the Why They Buy course that Amy and Melanie created. It's amazing.
Well, and let's talk about this real quick, because Amy, so you're part of the team. You're Aligned by Design is the business that's, I found you through Instagram because someone recommended. They were like, I follow this person on Instagram. And I was like, okay, great. So I reached out to you, and so sort of Amy maybe was the original person, and you learned from her. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, could you talk a little bit about? I'm actually curious about your business structure, because now you do most of the readings, and maybe she does the marketing or something. So can you talk a little bit about how you guys work together?
Yeah. So Amy and I have been friends for over 20 years. Her mom was my secretary in elementary school, and she kind of introduced us when we were young. So we've been friends for a really long time and just been through it all together. And she was coaching at the time. This was in early 2018. And she was coaching, and came across human design, and she just sent me like a little blurb about it and was like, what do you think about this? And instantly I was like, you have to incorporate this in your business. This is the coolest thing I've ever heard. And she was like, okay, cool. I'm going to do a reading for you. It was amazing. And it was just such divine timing. I was going through a big breakup at the time. And that breakup had me really questioning a lot about all of the choices I had made in my life up to that point. Like I was left feeling very irresponsible as a human. I'm like, oh my God, like, because I'm just so go with the flow. I let things come to me. Things always work out for me in the most incredible way. And I don't really have a plan a lot of the time. I just kind of feel into it. And I really felt like leaving that relationship, like I have to change everything about who I am, because this clearly isn't working. And then Amy sent me my reading, and there are so many pieces of my chart that it makes so much sense that that's the way that I am. And the more that I honor that, the more that everything keeps working out for me, and things just keep, showing up in the perfect divine timing. So yeah, I really fell in love with it. And so that the reading for me was a big game changer. And then Amy started incorporating it. And later in the fall, she reached out and asked if I wanted to start editing the podcast. So I was like, yeah, sure. And then she's like, well, if you have any interest in getting certified. I'm like, well, because she was kind of creating this program. And so I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. So through Amy, and also a lot of self-study, there's a lot of people out there, and like just books that I've read, and kind of between getting certified with Amy and self-study. And so that at that point, the intention was, she was going to really focus on creating the programs, and I would come in and do readings. And there was one other reader on the team at the time. And then that changed in June of this year. So that was kind of how we had it set up. There was 2 readers and then Amy. And then now I take on all of the readings, and Amy and I are in some masterminds together. And we both do one-to-one coaching. And Amy also does, she does a 12-month certification program for human design, which is incredible. There's people from all over the world that are in the program. And yeah, just more like specific programs. So we do that. We do master classes, we do masterminds, we work together, we work separately. In terms of the kind of marketing, we outsource that. And it's a really interesting way that the business operates, because first of all, we understand each other's designs. Amy's a 5/1 projector. And we complete each other's split. So parts of, for example, my sun gate is gate 1. And so I'm really here to be creative and express myself. And that's coming from your G center in the center of your chart. And there's a gate that comes down from the throat center, which is gate 8, which kind of is able to pull that out of somebody. So she completes that for me. I have the 1 and she has the 8. So together we can really She kind of helps me feel really comfortable in expressing all of these creative elements of myself. And then I can really help her get clarity on her creative expression. Like we just kind of bring it out at each other, which is amazing. And it's really, you know, we operate from a very desire-based way. We create through desire. You know, we are constantly having conversations of what do you want to step into this month, like as a human and in this business. Is there anything that you want to create? What are you desiring to do? You know, are you desiring to focus on, like last month, I created a masterclass where I was like, I really, you know, I did a reading for someone and she's like, I want to bring this into my business, but I don't want to do the full 12-month course. Do you have anything that I could do? And I'm like, okay, done. I was like, I'm going to create this course. So I desired to create that masterclass last month. So it really goes month by month, but it's also, you know, we're able to be really honest, which is so like, a couple months ago, she's like, okay, you know, in the Facebook group, I really need someone to kind of step up and start responding to more messages. And for me, that's just like that's a hell no. Like, I just don't desire to do that at all. And we have this relationship where I can just be like, yeah, that's a no for me. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to go find somebody who does desire to do that. And the thing is that there always is somebody who really, the task that I dread is something that they're like, they can either do with their eyes closed or do, you know, really either they're desiring to do it or they're really efficient at it. And so it kind of helps the wheels turn in a really clean way where everybody's happy.
Yeah. And it's making me think of just, you know, these dynamic founding duos from a lot of the big business success stories throughout American history. That, you know, there's a lot of times like a pair of friends that are sort of maybe opposite in some ways, that I'm thinking are like completing each other's circuits somehow.
Oh yeah, for sure. You know, energetically, it's so interesting because when you look at charts of people in your life, you know, where you share a lot of the same gates, there's a deep level of understanding. And where you complete each other's gates it's kind of like that magnetism. So sometimes in a romantic relationship that can be like fire and passion. And where you share the gates, there's really that deep level of like friendship and understanding. So for sure, we're drawn to people that either share those gates with us or are completing gates for us to create a channel.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. And you mentioned my children are manifesting generators. Are they bestowing something on us? Like, is like, if you were spending a lot of time with people that are like that, like, do we sort of pick up on some of that from them?
There's definitely energy that you'd be picking up on from them. In the centers that you're undefined, you would be absorbing from where they are defined. I think the thing for manifesting generators is that they're really here to show us that you don't need to struggle to be successful, and there are many, many ways to achieve your path to success. It's not linear, and there's not one way to get there. And they're meant to really be, you know, so Heidi is, I'm just looking here. Okay, yeah, so you and Heidi are both generators. So you're meant to master something in your lifetime, in your work, right? You're really going to be, and it can kind of take ebbs and flows. You know, you might pivot and change, but there's typically something weaving together what it is that you're doing, and there's a mastery that develops over time. Whereas for manifesting generators, they are here to really just squeeze out everything that they can from whatever it is that they're lit up by, and then move on. You know, not get stuck in that thing so that they can really look cohesive to the rest of the world, which is where they can get tripped up. So I would say, if you're here to learn anything from them or take anything from them, it's like follow their bliss and let them move around and let them pivot and change and just be really excited about the things that they're doing and not feel shame around changing their minds.
Okay. Yeah, that's another good. They're still quite young, so I'm like, you know, thinking ahead.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for young kids, when you have a defined sacral, remembering that the sacral's here to respond, and it's yes or no, this or that. So, asking questions like, what do you want for dinner? Even for the two of you guys, because you're both generators, what do you want for dinner? Or where do you want to go? Or, what do you want to do when you grow up? It's like, those are really big questions for a sacral. But if you were to give me two options, I can lean into one over the other. So if we're having a meltdown about what to wear to school, do you want to wear these pants or these pants? Do you want to, or, if everybody's outside but they're inside crying, did you want to stay inside and have some alone time, or do you want to come out and play with everybody? It's like, give them two lanes to choose from and let them make that choice. It feels really empowering, I think, for kids to just be able to make their own decisions, but give them a path to choose.
I do that a little bit already, mostly because I give them two choices that I want them to do.
Like, yeah.
Do you want to clean your room before or after dinner? Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
The room still gets clean. There's seeing that there's so many different ways that people can be designed. I'm thinking that it sort of leads you to appreciate people that are perhaps very different, and still just accept them. And I'm wondering what's that sort of done for you in terms of how you relate to other people.
Yeah, I think definitely for manifestors, that's an energy type that they're described as having a repelling energy. I just say they're not everybody's cup of tea. They're a really kind of intense energy I find from the manifestors in my life. And they're kind of like a take them or leave them type of person. And so for me, all of the manifestors has just made a lot of sense of how they are. It's like, whoa, okay, you're just going to go do your thing. All right, that's you. And, for example, I was just home in Canada visiting my parents a couple months ago, and my mom is a projector and my sister's a projector and my dad is a reflector. So my dad's like the rarest of energy types. But by 7:30, all of the lights are off in the house. Like, projectors and reflectors really need a lot of rest and just sleep, and they need to really kind of cleanse their energy at the end of the day so they can get up and go tomorrow. Where I find for sacral beings, we can really be like, if I don't put myself to bed between 10 and 11, I'm just going to be up till 2 a.m. I also don't have kids that run me into the ground, so that's part of it, I'm sure. But I have a lot of energy. So for me, it's like knowing, before I probably would have come home and been like, oh, my parents are just getting old. But now I'm like, okay, you know what? Actually, when I think about it, they've been doing this for years and years, and they're just projectors and reflectors. Or I have a friend who, for Thanksgiving the other week, I asked if someone could join, and because of COVID, she was kind of on the fence about having someone she didn't know join, and she's an emotional authority. And so she went back and forth 5 times. I mean, she called me to say no, and then she called me back 4 hours later and was like, actually, I thought about it. And she was so apologetic, but for me, I just laugh. I'm like, well, that's her, that's her. Or for people that have a third line in their profile. So I think you have, where is it? Chloe's a 6-2. So for the first 30 years of her life, she will operate as a third line, which is, I learn through experience, and I need to experience to learn, and the school of life is my greatest teacher. And so for people that have a third line in their profile, that's how they learn. And it doesn't matter how much you tell them. Sometimes they're just going to do it themselves, and that's just how they're going to learn. So
I see that already. Yeah.
Yeah. So, for example, a friend of mine is a 3-6. And so for her, for the first 30 years, she was a 3-3. Now she's kind of sinking out of that. But during quarantine, the beginning of quarantine, her and her boyfriend got a dog. And all of my friends were like, this is crazy. Like, she is the last person that should be getting a dog. Like, she's just not gonna be able to handle it. And we all gave our opinions, but she did it anyways. And then she hated it. And then she ended up rehoming the dog a few months later. And where a lot of my other friends kind of got tripped up, and I have a lot of projector friends, and projectors can really tend to, when they can sink into their not self theme quite often. Your not self theme is when you're kind of getting out of alignment. So for projectors, it's bitterness. So they can really tend to focus on what is going wrong, because their gift is the way they see things. So they always see kind of how things could be better, how things could be improved, what not to do. And they can sometimes get tripped up in that what's not working. And, so they wasted a lot of energy being like, oh my God, I can't believe she did this. And I understand human design. So I'm laughing because I'm like, she's a 3/6. So like, doesn't matter what I told her. There's no sweat off my back. That's how she learns her lessons in life. That's how she learns the lessons in life. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think how it shows up in my relationships is just a deeper understanding, and you can kind of have that grace and compassion because it's like, it's just who you are,
Yeah, and I'm imagining that, when you stop trying to get somebody to be the way you think they should be, then there's a lot more sort of peace on your end and a lot more, feeling of being accepted on their end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's where at the beginning, I was just talking about that space that you can create, where it's just like, you get to show up where there's no judgment. It's just like understanding. I'm like, well, that's just who you are, and I definitely wouldn't do it like that, but that's because I'm not designed that way. And it's not, when people really get a reading and understand their human design, there's so much of your design that you're already intuitively living out.
Sure.
So there's so many things that make sense. It's like, oh, well, of course. Like, it's like, how do you know that that's how? I'm like, well, it's just because that's your, that's your energy. That's how you're meant to be doing it. And a lot of people, like I said, are intuitively already doing it. So yeah, it's just knowing that that's how you operate as an individual. And this is how I operate. It just it makes a lot of sense.
So my wife, I pulled her chart and said, hey, look, you're a generator. And she was like, just a generator? I'm special. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really resonate with that. So what do you say to people who like don't like what their chart is saying that they are?
I find it so funny. Generators oftentimes are like, oh, like that's just so boring. Like I want to be something more unique or different. So, and I'm even looking at Heidi's chart, and like it's an amazing chart. She has, first of all, her root defined, which means that she can really handle a lot of stress and pressure and get things going, and kind of like at the last minute, like in a tornado, be like, let's go, we can get it done. And her sacral, I think that having a sacral defined is such a gift because your strategy is to respond. And my favorite analogy for this is like when you are at a fancy party or you're at cocktail hour of a wedding, your sole job as the guest of that wedding is to enjoy the party. Enjoy the party, have great conversation, enjoy the food, just enjoy being there. And at any moment in time, there's going to be a server that comes around with a platter that says, would you like one? And you get to look and either be like, ooh, yes, please, or no, thanks, I'm good. And that's what it is to respond, like as a generator and a manifesting generator, you don't have to go out and find things that excite you. You just have to lean back and pay attention to what excites you and then dive into those things. So, I would say that it's such a gift to be able to do that because you really, when you can lean back and surrender and take that conditioning of you want something, go hustle, go make it happen. Generators and manifesting generators hit resistance. I mean, anyone other than a manifestor is going to hit some type of resistance when you try to do that. Now, that's not to say you can't reach success by doing that, but like, is it more fun to let a server come to you and bring you champagne all night? Or do you want to be chasing the server all night just to get that glass of champagne?
Mm-hmm. So you can confirm for my wife that she's special and important because of her chart.
Confirm. Heidi, you are special. You also have a defined heart. That's like, I think less than 30% of the population has a defined heart. And that is really special in that it's that will, it's a defined will. And when your heart is in something, it's never a question of accomplishments. It's just like, I want this thing, I'm going to do it. It's another center to kind of work out of because you can have that extra drive to go make it happen. So I think it's such a gift to have a defined heart too.
And can you see like if you look at Heidi's chart and my chart as us as a couple, is there anything going on that says like you guys benefit from this, or here's where you would find conflict?
The only things that are coming up for me right now that I'm seeing, oh wait, Derek. We both have defined G center, which is that like direction and identity would be strong, which is amazing. No, you guys complete. There's a few that you complete each other and share. Actually, there's a lot of sharing too. So I think there'd be just a deep understanding. You both have the defined root, which is great because I find that can cause stress in a relationship when somebody has the definition and somebody doesn't, right? Because one person is able to operate out of that root and like I said, the last minute we can get things done. When you're undefined there, it can feel like a lot of pressure. And then you both have a defined G center, which sometimes can happen if one person's defined there and one person's undefined. And the G center is the yellow diamond in the center of your chart. That, like I said, is direction and identity and love. But sometimes people with an undefined G can almost just really absorb the identity of the other in a relationship and almost lose themselves in the lowest frequency, that is. So, but you guys are both defined there. So I think the only thing that I can see that could cause some like, not friction, but you have a defined ajna, so mentally you operate in a really different way than Heidi. You'd be more fixed in like your kind of opinions or formulating your opinions, where she would likely be very open and kind of can like see all sides and isn't so just fixed in the way that she's coming at things. She can really see like a broader perspective. And so I think the only way that could cause problems is if you kind of were bothered by that about her, bothered by the like flowiness of her in her forming her opinions. She's really meant to like take a mishmash where you likely would be like approaching things in the same way and be more just consistent in the way you're approaching things. And then you have a defined throat and she doesn't. So that'd actually be great because for an undefined throat center, that's your communication and expression. So undefined, your ability to express yourself is really going to depend on who you're around. So she might actually feel super safe to be finding her voice and expressing herself in your presence. And around certain other groups of people, I don't know if you find this with her, but because she could just be tapping into your defined throat when you're together. But, in certain rooms, she might be really loud and be able to joke and feel really comfortable and have a lot to say. And in other rooms, she might just like, I don't know where my voice fits in here. I don't really know if I have something to contribute. So, it's just, I think the only place that couples can get really tripped up is when you, like we were saying with relationships in general, when you expect somebody to be the way that you are and not really giving them, not understanding that like that's just not how they're built. But I think in my experience, having an emotional authority and an undefined emotion are where the most issues can arise in a relationship, because there's a lot of emotional communication that needs to be figured out. But you guys are both undefined there. So you'd both kind of be really absorbing emotions from the other. The only thing I can see would be you both absorbing and not releasing from that day. So what can tend to happen with an undefined is that you've gotten into the presence of somebody who may be experiencing anger, anxiousness, whatever. And so you've absorbed that and it can feel really overwhelming, these emotions for an undefined. And if you're not consciously getting rid of them, like consciously just saying, what is this emotion that I'm feeling? Okay, is this mine? Because if it's yours, you can process it. If it's not, is there somebody that I've been around today that maybe was experiencing this emotion? And then like that, you can drop it and really re-enter in a different place energetically. Like you can really be like, okay, whoa, that's not mine. Whew. So
it's like don't go to bed angry type of thing.
Yeah, but the thing is for people that are emotional authorities, like you kind of have to let them sometimes, because they might just be feeling angry, and it might not necessarily be something that you did. And I find emotional authorities take a bit more time to reach like a clarity of how they feel. Like they have to really sift through a ton of emotions to be like, okay, wait, this is actually how I'm feeling, and this is what caused me to feel that way. Like in my last relationship, he was an emotional authority, and sometimes it would take like 48 hours for him to then come back around to what we were talking about and being like, okay, so I actually I took in everything that you said, and yeah, you were right here, and this is how I felt here. And that was like the most, I didn't know human design then, but it makes so much sense now.
Wow. Okay. Can you tie this in? I'm thinking about also just the sort of differences in men and women, or masculine and feminine, and different sort of programming societal, like women are like this and men are like this, which may be sort of separate from human design. The whole like listen to my problems, don't try to solve them type of thing. Is maybe you could just comment on like where masculine and femininity fits in with human design.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because I think it depends. Like to me, as a generator, leaning back to respond feels very like a feminine energy, right? Like it's just that lean back. But then once you're responding and you're going for it, you're kind of tapping into the masculine. So I just think it's a balance for each energy type. For each type, there's a lot of leaning back and then leaning in. So I don't necessarily, I don't know. I think it's finding that balance just as a human, and feeling into what feels good, and knowing that it's healthiest for all of us to be tapping into both. And I think that we've been conditioned, certainly as a society, to really be in our masculine, and go and make it happen and go do that. And so I think a lot of the deconditioning in human design is kind of leaning into that feminine and inviting it, but knowing that there's absolutely a place for the masculine. It's just a dance.
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, thank you. I know you guys were featured in Vogue this year, and that seems like a pretty significant thing. So congrats.
Thank you.
That's really cool. I'm curious how that came about.
So this is so funny. As we talk about profiles, I'm a 4-1. And so if you have a fourth line in your profile, which you do, and the fourth line really is the natural networker, somebody who is really able to build connections and build meaningful connections. And it doesn't necessarily mean, I always say, it doesn't necessarily mean you're like schmoozing at the party, right? You could just show up to the party and just have two really great conversations. And, then you start following those two people on Instagram. And then, months later, they're like, oh my God, I met a guy, and it was like, oh my God, I met Derek a couple months ago. He'd be great for this. So a lot of opportunities come to you through this network of people that you're creating as you build relationships. And when you can get into the flow of that, things just kind of naturally start to pop up. So for me, I was having dinner with a friend. He had just heard about human design, and I just started doing readings. And he was like, oh, can you come do a reading for my fiance and I? So I had dinner with them. I did it. I didn't feel ready. I remember feeling like, oh, I'm not even qualified for this. And that's the one in my profile, which is like, I'll never know enough. But I went and did it anyways. And he said to me, you have to meet my friend Elsa. She would love you. She would love this. And so he connected us the next day. And I did a reading for her, not knowing she is just in PR and really well connected. And so I did this reading for her. She loved it and connected me to an editor of Vogue Paris. And yeah, I got to do a reading for her, and then they featured us. So it just unfolded in the most natural way. Vogue was never something Vogue, of course. Like in my lifetime, I'm like, oh, like it'd be so cool to do work with them. But I never, like, it wasn't like a specific plan that I had, or, just kind of just happened.
Yeah, I love that story. You've had some interesting, like really quick success in your life. It sounds like. Could you talk a little about how you sort of quickly became a recording artist, singer-songwriter?
So unknowingly, like I didn't know human design at the time, but I have always lived my life letting my sacral lead me, letting my desires lead me. Like if it gets me out of bed in the morning, I just jump in. And as a 4-1 profile, they kind of say 4-1s are here, like it's like 2% of the population are 4-1s. And so we kind of have this like bonus life. We have a fixed fate, and we're really here to just be, enjoying life and diving into the things that we love, and letting people know that like it's all going to be okay. It's not that serious. And for me, my sun gate, like I said, is creative expression. So writing is something that I always did. I always wrote poetry. And I think it was 2010. I was studying for exams, maybe 2009. I was studying for exams, and I was just procrastinating. I just picked up a guitar and I started playing. Actually, though, it was the night before I was at my boyfriend at the time's house, and his roommate is an amazing guitar player, and he recorded music. And we had had a couple beers, and I just got this like liquor courage to just sing. And I had been in the church choir when I was younger, but I never had the confidence to just go out and perform. But we did that night, and the next morning he like barged into the room and was like, "This is so good. Can I please put this on MySpace?" I was like, "Sure." And then when I listened back, I was like, "Oh wait." And so that's when this is around exam time. So I picked up a guitar. I Googled some chords. I Googled how to play guitar. And I just taught myself through that. And then, kind of mixed my poetry with singing. And I wrote a song and entered it into a nationwide songwriting contest. My best friend she commuted to work, and she's like, "I just heard of this contest on the radio. You should apply." And I thought like, okay, what do I have to lose? So I applied, and then I won a record deal. And it was just like that, like everything just changed in a matter of 3 months. I was, going to Toronto all the time. I grew up in London, Ontario, which is 2 hours from Toronto. So I started going to Toronto all the time. I had a website. I had my first photo shoot. I recorded a music video. Like it all happened really, really quickly. But it was amazing. I mean, to this day, I love singing, and I love creating music, and I always say that was my vehicle to get me to LA, which from a kid, I always wanted. Like LA was the dream. Never had been to California. Something in me was like, I just want to be there. So, it got me here. And then 6 months after I got my visa, I was like, I don't think I really want to do this. Because I thought about the journey, I thought about like what it's really like you're in a van and you're touring and you're grinding. And like, I was like, do I really want, is that what I really want? And then the answer was no. And at the time I had just learned how to make scented candles. And so my entrepreneurial mind was like, ooh, let's start a business. So I just hopped into that. And in the same way, when it's aligned for you, and my sacral was so lit up, I created this business that created these beautiful scented candles that were all over boutiques in LA. I got into 25 Urban Outfitters in New York and across the East Coast. And I just think that as a sacral being, when you're really lit up, and I have a defined heart center. So like when my heart is in it, it's just like, let's go, let's do this. Like there's nothing that's going to stop me. And so I think that mixed with just, I don't know, divine timing and alignment has always allowed these little quick successes to come into my life.
Yeah, that's fascinating to sort of see in retrospective, like you were living your design. So I watched your video. I watched the music video. I found it on YouTube, and there's a moment where you're like writing a song. So that's the Butterflies, the song. Mm-hmm. And so in the video, you're actually like picking the guitar. And so I'm guessing you're 3 months into a career doing a music video. You're still learning the
100.
guitar.
Yeah.
And there's a scene in the video where you're like learning the guitar.
Yeah. No, that was so real. And I never would have played, not never, but like in my performances, I wouldn't pick up a guitar and just like, to this day, I still just strum. I'm not a gifted guitar player by any means, but you just need to know how to play a few chords to create an instrumental to start writing music to. So
Yeah.
you don't need that much.
I'm wondering if, so at the beginning you talked about, human design being like an onion, and people that aren't familiar with this, we're sort of, I have a little bit of knowledge and you're the expert. So you might have heard terms that you're not yet familiar with. And there is a vocabulary to it to sort of understand. And I was wondering if you could just sort of talk about your own journey of like, if there's different layers or levels of understanding how you went through that.
Yeah, I think that you definitely want to start with understanding your energy type, your strategy, and your authority. Your energy type is the energy that you have. Your strategy is how you're meant to be using it to create that path of least resistance for yourself and how to work with the universe. And then your authority is where in your body you should be making decisions from. And it's never your mind. It's always somewhere in your body, whether it's your instinct or, for the emotional authorities, they have to wait and ride that wave, or for sacral authorities, they are, it's from their gut. But I would say start there, really understanding those. It always comes back to that. It always comes back. If you're out of alignment, it's always ask yourself, like, am I following my energy type and my strategy and my authority? And then, it's so interesting because I feel like I was just catching up with one of my friends last night, and I've done 2 readings for her and her fiance. And every time we catch up and talk about it, I'm like, oh my God, but I know so much more now. Like there's always more to learn, right? Like, so I'd say start with energy type, strategy, authority. But then when you get into the centers, it's, this is where we're talking about, when I talked about the throat center and your ability to express yourself, and, the G center being like, what's driving you, or what's kind of pulling you, your path or your direction in life. There's so many more details. And then within that, there's gates and channels. Like if you guys are looking at a chart, there's tiny little numbers and little lines coming out of each center. So, I'd say just start with energy, strategy, authority, and then work your way into centers and your profile. And then you can dive into the gates. Sometimes, I'll do a reading and people just want to know right away, like, tell me what the gates and channels mean, which it's super exciting. And I totally understand that. But again, if you're not really embodying your energy type, strategy, authority, then all of those things won't mean very much for your alignment.
Great. Yeah, that's helpful, because at first someone told me about it and I looked at it and I was like, it's too intimidating. I'm going to put that on the shelf. And like a year later, I'm starting to learn about it.
Yeah. It's just like anything, it's a slow process. And I think you learn more and you digest it, and what resonates, take with you, and what doesn't, don't. And just know that human design is an experiment. So, take what you can and just play with it. Have fun, like test things out in your world and see when things really line up and work for you and when things don't. And, what doesn't work, drop, and what does work, just keep at it.
Yeah, it's fantastic advice. Play it just since my listeners and audience sort of know me a little bit. I was wondering if we could scoot back over and take another look at my chart and see if there's anything interesting worth noting in terms of, I'm an entrepreneur, podcast host, coaching people, writing books. What can you sort of discern from the chart that might be helpful?
Well, even so coming down from your ajna, you have a channel 11 to 56, which is going from your ajna to your throat. So
sorry, what is ajna?
Ajna is the mind. So ajna is the red triangle that's green triangle, very up at the top. First is your head center or your crown, which is, you have it completely open, and then underneath that is the green kind of arrow pointing down, and that's your ajna. And so you have a channel 11 going down to your throat, which is the brown box underneath that. So that's the channel of, you know, you would really be somebody who is a storyteller, and you teach through that. You teach through telling stories. You know, it's not like, it's not, you have this kind of creative capability of, instead of just providing information in a way that's boring, you can really like kind of entertain people with it and make it exciting and fun. And so that's just something that you should be diving into as a person, and really, like, as you said, you know, you write. So it's like just kind of finding ways to not just deliver the information, but delivering it in a way that's like entertaining and exciting for the listener or the reader. You, in your profile, I mean, you're a 2-4. So really there's like, that fourth line is, like I said, you, all of your kind of connections and opportunities are, a lot of them are going to come to you through your network. But the 2 line is the Hermit. And so the Hermit has this tendency to just want to shy away and be alone. And so there's kind of a push and pull that's always going to exist within you of wanting to, like, I can't decide if I want to like go out and be with people or just be alone and be like a complete hermit. And so for you, it's knowing like you get to be both. You like, don't force yourself down one path. That is just part of your personality, both of those. So, you know, tap into your sacral, and when you feel like it's a hell yes, I want to go do this thing, then go out, but don't force yourself.
So the way that shows up is I always arrive late to parties. So I'm like a hermit for the first half of a party. Then I arrive late and leave early.
And you know what? That's what works. That's what works. But yeah, that and 2-4s also have this very like, can have a very childlike energy, like a really like fun, playful energy about them too. But just, yeah, knowing that push and pull is always going to be there. So you don't have to pick one. You get to be both. Looking at your chart as well, you are a specific manifester. So what that means is when you're trying to manifest something, you know, you want to get down to the nitty gritty. Don't be afraid to write in detail if there's like an exact number that you want, or if, you know, you guys were looking for a new home, for example, like you can be like, I want that house right there. When that house goes on for sale one day, like we're moving into that. So like you can be that specific. Or, you know, I want this many bedrooms, this many bathrooms, I want east facing bay window. I want, you know, like you can get down to that, those details. And so even when you're trying to manifest new coaching clients, you know, like who do you want to be, who do you want to be calling in? You can get super specific on that as you're asking the universe. And yeah, I mean, you know, you have this completely open crown, that's where inspiration and insight come in. So, you know, you'd be super open to inspiration kind of coming in from anywhere. And, but then all of that's going to go right into your mind, which is super active. And, you know, it's kind of one of those brains that doesn't necessarily shut off. So I would say you don't have to turn every single idea into something. I think there can sometimes be a pressure with the ajna to be like, okay, we got to make this into like, and you have this defined throat too, that's going right down to like, okay, I need to express it. I want to share it with people. But knowing that, yeah, you don't have to turn every lofty concept and idea into something. So take that pressure off of yourself. For anybody that has a defined ajna, I would say meditate meditation is a great practice. I mean, it's a great practice for everybody, but with a defined ajna, it's a great practice because it can really kind of disconnect you from your active mind and just give you a little bit of peace for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely, you know, what you're saying earlier about people are like saying like, yes, oh, you see me, or like that's me. Definitely, I've always been that type of person that I learned something and I just can't wait to share it and tell stories about it. So
yeah.
Amazing.
And yeah, that's what I would say. And for you, it's just like your sacral authority. So really tap into that sacral and let your desires lead you.
And I'm imagining there's sort of learning what that feels like, and sort of a vocabulary, or honing how good you are at listening to that and understanding like what it's telling you.
For anybody that's like, I don't really know, like, okay, because so the sacral, guys, is the red square at the near the bottom of your chart. And so if that's colored in for you and you don't quite know what that feels like, I'd say ask yourself or have somebody ask you 100 yes or no questions, or this or that, you know, like, and you can just start with small things. What, like, do I want to cook dinner tonight, or do I want to get takeout? Do I want to go for a run? Do I want to stretch, go for a walk?
So a big game of would you rather.
Totally. Yeah. And then but then as you're playing, pay attention to how you feel. Because the sacral doesn't know the difference between you saying like, hey, like, is it time for me to quit my 9 to 5 and really go all in on my side hustle? Or should I get Italian or sushi? Doesn't know the difference between those, right? Our human body and our human mind makes there such a heavy weight to that. But when you can really tap into your body, you'll know what feels like the yes or the no, and you'll know what path feels right. And I think knowing for any authority that your mind is so loud and it's always going to come in and try to deter you. Your mind is going to be the analytical, logical person that's going to come in and rain on the parade. You know, like I was looking for a privacy fence for my balcony, and I went to Home Depot. This is during COVID, because I found a like bamboo fence online. So I drove there. It took me 25 minutes to drive there. I waited 20 minutes in line. I got my cart when I finally got in, and I saw the fence, and I was like, and my mind was like, oh, no. Do you want this done or not? We drove all the way here. You said you like, we've waited in line. You said you wanted it. Let's do it. Like, do you want this done or not? And then sacral was like, So I like walked away. I'm like, okay, let's give 10 minutes. Let's come back with fresh eyes. Came back with fresh eyes, and the same thing happened. My sacral was like, And so knowing that I'm a sacral authority, I knew, okay, that's my mind coming to rain on the parade. But truly my gut, my sacral is saying, and I just like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So I left. I didn't take it. And on the drive home, just it kind of popped into my head of like, ooh, what if I looked at like a room divider that was wooden, kind of like, I just got a vision for what it could be. I ended up finding that. And now I look at it every day and I'm like, I love it. And I didn't settle for the, and I think we can tend to settle for so many things like that in life. But when you can start to shift out of making decisions like that and just know that like, yeah, I wanted to get that done that day, but like, it didn't have to be done that day. You know, it could wait another week. And now I'm so lit up and so satisfied when I see it. And so, yeah, just for any authority though, just know that the mind is going to pop in and try and rain on your parade.
I love how you said the mind is not the answer.
Yeah.
And I think probably our society is just constantly telling us, just rationally think it through and make the best choice based on the pros and cons.
Yeah, analyze it.
Yeah, analyze it.
Yeah, and that's just a part of what we call it unsexy work at Aligned by Design. But the unsexy work or the deconditioning, it's rewiring your brain to tap out of there and really tap into your body and tap into how your body's communicating with you.
Yeah, I can have probably some work to do there myself as a,
we all do.
as a big thinker. So Liz, this has been super fantastic. I know there's way more we could talk about, but really appreciate, just how you flowed with the conversation and sharing your own story and working with some of these charts that I shared with you. Where can people find more about you and find your work?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, first of all. This is so fun. And I mean, I can definitely annoy some people in my life at how willing and open I am to talk about human design and relate everything back to it. So I appreciate it.
Perfect guest, though.
True. But yeah, I love it. So thank you so much for having me. And you can find, my Instagram is at Liz Coyles. Our Instagram for Aligned by Design is at Aligned by Design HD. And our website is alignedbydesignhd.com. humandesign.com. So we really, our intention is to support people through human design and our understanding of it. And so whether it's a reading that you're looking for to deepen your understanding, or if it's some one-to-one coaching, or if it is a group program, or you want to get certified yourself, there are many ways that we are here to offer you support to kind of deepen your knowledge and your understanding of human design.
Fantastic. Yeah, I love you guys are doing this and supporting people. So thank you.
Oh, and we also have a podcast. We have the Aligned by Design podcast.
Oh, of course.
There's a lot of free information. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to know my chart, I want to know more. There's a ton of amazing, incredible content on the podcast that you can listen to as well. Yeah,
and so I saw like, here's a celebrity chart broken down. So that's a kind of fun way of looking at it too. So
yeah, and so many things make sense, right? Like I posted the other week, it was a Rihanna interview. She's an emotional authority manifesting generator. And she was like, when I'm into something, I'm already over it. Like I'm already on to the next thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sums up the emotional authority manifesting generator so well. So it is cool to see real life examples.
Yeah, that's fun. Liz, great to have you on, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jared.
Thanks. Bye-bye.